In this edition of Change Chat, I talk with David from Tablet Tech, Aaron from 2530 Media, and Jay from Not a Professional Jay. This was pre-recorded and part of a longer live stream. Welcome. I am very happy to be joined by David at Tablet Tech and Aaron at 2530 Media. And Jay will be joining us in just a little bit to kind of do this E-Ink Roundtable. So pop into the chat. Let us know what's going on. We have some things on the agenda, but we're definitely going to want to hear from you all and any questions you have as we're going through. Just a few things that have popped up. So how are you guys doing this afternoon?
Doing good.
Doing really good.
You got some weather, didn't you, Aaron?
I mean, yeah, it's probably not, as bad as what you guys get. It's probably y'all normal winter. It's like 32 outside, so I don't like it.
Yeah, we got a high of 15 today. Wind chill
Oh,
was like 0 or below, and it'll be negative 20 overnight wind chill.
oh,
We're getting down to, I think, 17 tonight. I think that's what it's going to be.
And remind me where you're at, David. What state?
I'm outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay. So you're in the South too. So
I'm sorry,
I'm the
we're going to
only
get down to
northerner.
16 tonight.
thanks. How we doing?
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Jay.
Good to see you, Jay. Yeah, so we're all just getting started. Just a little backstory on what got us on here today. We had a pretty good discussion in the Discord about different things going on with the E-Ink community right now, and had a couple of things I think we wanted to highlight, and I'll kind of let Dave introduce that a little bit because he had one of the first things, which has to do with how you might approach somebody who's interested in E-Ink. And I'll let you set that up, Dave, if you want.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. So, yeah, I had something happen last week, 2 incidents in 1 week, and this rarely happens to me, but I had a friend that invited me out to a coffee shop. He just wanted to talk about, catch up on some things, and he also, as we were talking, so we both have YouTube channels. We were just chatting about that. He asked me what my channel was about, and I told him e-ink or e-paper devices. He had never heard of one, and he was very curious, and I was trying to describe it to him, and it was really difficult to do. I was talking about ink particles and, EMRs and stuff like that. And he was just totally lost. He's like, "Well, you don't happen to have one with you?" I was like, "Man, that would have been great if I'd have thought to bring one, but I didn't." And so it was hard to kind of tell him what an e-ink device was. So go a couple of days forward, I'm at work, and a guy I hardly ever see, he walks up to me, and somebody had said, "Hey, they told me to come over and talk to you. I want to get like an e-ink device, and that you might know a lot about them." And we just mentioned that, hey, I've got a YouTube channel. He never knew that, but he had watched my videos, and he recognized me after he walked up. He said, "Oh yeah, I've watched some of your videos," but he asked me if I had one with me as well to demo, and I had the Booksnote Air 5C, and I did let him try it out, but it just got me to thinking, ideally, if I knew that I was gonna go into a situation where somebody was gonna ask me about e-ink and I could be prepared for that ahead of time, what device would I take with me? And so that's kind of what we're gonna talk about a little bit today, at least for part of the live stream today, is which one would all of us choose to demo? If we're in control of the device and we're saying, "Hey, it can do this, it can do this," which one would you offer up? So, I'm not gonna give my answer yet.
Jay, Aaron, what do you guys think? Which one, if you had that situation pop up, would you pull out if you had multiples or if you knew you were going to take one in advance? Which one would it be?
Um, so, so with me, this is weird. I've been in that same situation too, Dave. Where someone at work has actually saw my channel. So usually I'll have a books device with me and then a smaller device. Since I've been using the Remarkable, I normally have a books device and Remarkable. I've shown all of them. I think if I just had a choice and I knew I was going to demo some e-ink to someone, it probably would be the Scribe and Remarkable. The two reasons for that, I think some of it is brand recognition. The Scribe and Remarkable are both the only tablets I know of that you can go into a department store and actually demo 'em. So when I tell people it's e-ink, most people can identify with the Kindle Scribe or Kindle. And most people have seen Remarkable on display at Best Buy. So those would be the two I use. I've used the books before. I just don't get into the weeds with the tools. I kind of just show them what you can do first. So
Yeah. Yeah, my coworker had actually been in Best Buy, so he had tried the Kindle Scribe and the Remarkable Paper Pro. And it's funny, he had watched some of my videos. He started talking to me about Gallery 3 and Kaleido 3, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're not a newbie." And so he'd been watching some videos, not only mine but some other people as well. And he was asking about writing feel and some other stuff. And I was thinking, gosh, I wish I could choose the device that I brought. So I had my Note Air 5C. He tried it out. He loved the writing feel, by the way. But I didn't get into anything else on the device because, it's complex. And I was thinking maybe the Scribe or maybe the Kindle would be a good start, and then maybe advance them to something else. But if you only have one, what do you take?
usually if I only have one, usually if I have only one, nowadays it's the Move or the 10.3.
So I usually have a couple of things on me. I almost always have, if I'm traveling around and going to do work somewhere, I almost always have the Max on me. And the thing about the Max is that it lends itself really well to showing somebody something just because the screen is so big. So I can't tell you how many times I have been out working on the Max in public and it has started a conversation about e-ink. Like it's just happened. I don't even have to say anything. People are like, what is that? Like every time, somebody always comes up and asks a question about it. So, that, ends up being, I think, my default go-to. I have definitely, ended up making the Go 10.3 my demo device for my dad. And then and then I ended up getting my dad one for Christmas. And so now we both have a 10.3 and can, trade notes on how we use it and so on and so forth. And he seems to really enjoy using the 10.3. So, I guess that's another one. The one that's like kind of, maybe a curveball in my case is I will frequently, if somebody asks me about it and I don't have it directly, I don't have something directly in front of me, I almost always have the Palma 2 Pro on me. And so that's really easy because I can be like, here's how the software works, right? And be like, you can, it's really easy to put the two, like the Palma 2 Pro and my phone right next to each other and be like, you can see the obvious difference in the way that the screen works here, right? And that usually gets people's attention. So yeah, I think those are my picks.
Figured you would say the Palma 2 Pro would be one of them because I know how much you love that device.
Mhm,
It's a great
mhm.
device and it's a great demo. It's a great thing to demo with. And the Note Max, I didn't even think about that, to be honest, Jay. That's a great demo device because it does grab attention. There's a lot of room to write on it, and the writing feel is fantastic. So, I didn't even think about that one. I had my list, and I'm going to go ahead and tell what I chose or what my device would be. And I felt like I might be overlapping Ed, and I think this comment is giving away what my device would be because Ed's the Supernote guy. But I chose Supernote. If I'm going to be in that situation again, the writing feel is so much different than any other ink device. You've got that, I call it, gosh, well, I won't tell you what what I call it again, but it's like, Ed, I think you've described it as like a pen on a stack of paper. It kind of digs into that Feel Right 2 screen or screen protector. So you get a really good resistive feel without it being too resistive. And it's got great contrast and the tools are there, but you don't have to dig into the weeds. If you're just going to demo it, you can just say, hey, here's what you can do. And here's why it's better than paper. Because you can lasso and move stuff around, you can, make stuff bigger, smaller, you can create task and calendars, you can star stuff or make to-dos. That was what I had considered that I would make my demo device, but any of them would really be good. I don't think there's really a wrong choice. But Ed, I know that we were talking in the Discord earlier. You said that your choice might surprise me.
Well, my choices, obviously I carry the Manta with me all the time. So it's generally the one that I'll pull out and show people. But to me, it's more about controlling what they see in the moment. So if you're trying to explain e-ink, I open up a note for them and have them write on it. So to me, at that point, it really doesn't matter which device it is, as long as they're getting an experience of what the devices are capable of. And then you have the conversation around that. And that's kind of my technologist background coming out because I match people with technologies. It's what I do for a living. So I start asking those questions about, do you like to write on a legal pad? If you do, the Supernote's a great device. Or would you prefer to write on one piece of paper on a hard desk? Then I would probably tell them to go to something like Remarkable. And then there are all kinds of variations in between, and we start to have that conversation. So that's what I meant, David, when I said it would surprise you, because I can kind of start from any of the devices and get them at least an introduction. The color devices are a little harder because you've got to then explain what a color device is. So I 100% agree with you. Black and white's just easier to jump in. But as far as just getting them a brief introduction, my first experience was the Remarkable 2. I saw our server guy, our contractor down in the server. We have one server and he was down there and I saw this thing laying there and I said, what is that? And he said, here, come and write on it. And he did that same thing with me. He just pulled open a note and let me play with it.
I do the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's why I don't think there's a right or wrong on which device it is, unless it's just like way too much. If you start to walk them through the book's UI,
no,
they're
that's
going to
not.
be like,
Yeah,
what? Or if you start
way
to
too
walk
much.
them through the digest, it's, then you're just blowing out their minds versus here's a note. Here's why I picked up this thing in the first place.
If they're if they're calling out how like, oh, I tried to use my iPad like this, and it just wasn't satisfying. It doesn't make me want to pick up and use it. It's just like a really, obnoxious writing experience, which I could totally understand. The plastic nib on the glass screen. Then I'll be like, okay, well, 1 second. And then I will pull out, this is funny because like, this is the opposite of what you expect, except it will become clear why shortly. I pull out my Tab Ultra C Pro. Now, the Tab Ultra C Pro, like every tab machine, has a plain glossy glass screen. However, not for me, because I put Fieldlight 2 on my Tab Ultra C Pro screen, which is just like perfect. Like I've got that combined with the titanium nib Scribe Premium pen. And just give that a try, writing on that. And then it's really funny watching their faces because they go from knowing what the iPad screen feels like, right?
Yeah.
To that. And it's just like night and day. And it's way more, it's like, oh, wow, this is really nice. Like getting this like visceral sense of like, oh, wow, this is so much better than what I was using before. It's always fun to watch that.
That is cool. That is cool. So the feel right, I have a question about that. So I see that everybody orders that. Are you buying that from Supernote? So you buy it and you have to cut it, I guess, to fit whatever device you're going to put it on. Yeah,
took a paper cutter and just went, after measuring what the screen size was and whatever. And so like it fits top to bottom, it fits perfectly after cutting it. And then left to right, you get like a little bit of, there's like, I don't know if you can see it. There's like this much left, right? That it doesn't quite cover. But I mean, like this is not even a functional space, right? Who cares?
Yeah.
But it's absolutely worth it for the like wild increase in writing feel compared to everything else.
That is cool. Well,
It
Ed, I
attaches
guess
just like a normal
I guess I
screen
built
protector.
That's
Sorry.
the Feel-Right 2 from Supernote.
But when you apply it, you don't have, it's just like a normal screen protector. You don't have to do any.
No, you gotta be real careful with how you apply. In fact, like Rada goes out of their way to be like, listen, this is not easy. And like they've got they've got an application video and a whole thing of like, you have to follow this procedure. They actually advise you to do it in a room, to actually like do it in a bathroom after you have run the hot shower for a while so that it gets steamed up and then the steam takes the dust particles out of the air. Because for whatever reason, this is very prone, you're putting it on, to like trapping dust underneath it. You have to be like super careful not to trap dust underneath it. I got really lucky when I put it on this one. I was able to like keep the dust basically entirely off the screen, which was awesome. But when I put it on my Go 10.3, I got like a couple of particles stuck under the protector here and there. And that was less satisfying. But still, it works fine.
I paid the $10, Aaron, to have somebody put it on for me.
Yeah,
because I was just so worried about it.
I can't even put regular screen protectors on my phone in my iPad without air bubbles and dust. So,
yep.
I tried to
Putting
put
that
one. I tried to put one on in a video on camera to the Books Tab XC, and it worked, but I did have dust all under it. I didn't say that on the video, but I ended up right after the video, I yanked that thing back off and ordered another
Yeah.
one because I screwed it up.
Yeah, I had some choice words for the Healing Shield, not because it's a bad product, just because I'm a bad applicator.
And the device the device that you're putting on it, it doesn't help that it's like massive, you know, it's a huge device. So it takes longer to put it on.
Yeah, to show you,
surface.
I still have the applicator.
Yep.
the squeegee, but it was,
I'm very
that
familiar with
was
it.
hard.
I did a couple of more videos where I wanted to compare the Tab XC screen to other screens, and I didn't want the screen protector in there because, you know, I didn't want anybody to say, well, hey, why does that look, you know, if it did look different. So I yanked the screen protector off, threw it away. You know, I'm keeping Healing Shield in business because I've got one on there again, but it's like the third or fourth one that I bought so far. I'm getting really good at applying them, Ed. If you need the next one put on, just send it over to me. I'll do it for $5.
Fantastic.
It makes a huge difference. Healing Shield is probably, just as an aside, is probably the closest thing to a Feel Right 2 that I've seen as far as a secondary market product, because it changes the feel of the Tab XC tremendously. I still prefer the Note Max, but it's a lot better. It's very much usable once you put that on there.
Do you think that have you noticed any difference in the screen quality? Because I have not.
I haven't.
Yeah.
You know, that's the thing. Onyx swears up and down, like, oh, we keep the, you know, no writing surface on the Tab series specifically for image clarity. And every time I hear that, I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I put Feel Right 2 on here. My image clarity is crystal. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yep.
I did the same thing on my Go 10.3. No issues with image quality. I don't even know what the argument is. Same for like the Note Air 5C. I mean, like, there's no problems on that. I don't know.
It's a mystery. I don't know why they do that.
Yep.
Well, the Note Air 5C has a film, right? I believe it does. Yeah. And I think the image quality on it is excellent.
Absolutely. It's one of the best Kaleido 3 screens I've ever seen. The only one I think that is really better Kaleido 3 wise. So when I got to see Rod in Philly, he showed me the Scribe Color Soft. And the thing, he's not wrong about the quality of the images on that screen. That is extremely high quality, like just for static images, no scrolling or anything like that, because it's not designed for that. But just in terms of just like raw static image display quality, it is amazing.
I agree.
And
yeah,
again, that's another one with like sort of like a slightly frosted or etched glass, you know, cover on it, where it's just like, I don't see how this detracts from the image quality at all.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron? I mean, you've got a bunch of devices, or have tested a bunch of devices for sure. What do you think about the ones that may have had a screen protector or not a screen protector? Anything on that?
So I don't see a difference between those and the edge glass, and I even kind of noticed that when I was in the when I was picking out my newest iPad. You know, you could get the iPad with the edge glass already on it. It's supposed to be able to be like
I didn't even know
light
that.
reflective and better for using the Apple Pen. I didn't see a difference between the two screens. When
Did it feel different writing on it?
A little bit. It still feels slippery like glass though. And that's why I chose to get the regular one without the edge glass, because I didn't want to write on it, period. That was like, I think I said the other day, I tried in 2018 to write on an iPad and got mad and threw the Apple Pencil somewhere. But I noticed, like, you know, the difference between the Go 7, it looks the same. I don't know why they just couldn't put a writing surface on it.
I don't get
because
it.
Even your Kindle,
like
your Kindle, like the Kindle Paperwhite I have, while it's not a legit writing surface, it's not just a slick screen either. It's
you
almost
you mean the Kindle Scribe?
No, I mean the Kindle Paperwhite Signature, just
The
the
small
e-reader
reader.
that doesn't have the writing surface. It still isn't just it's just the e-reader, but it doesn't have a slick screen. When you look at the screen of the Go 7 versus the screen of some of the Kindle e-readers, like the Paperwhite Signature, it looks like a screen that you would use for note taking. Like, it has a little bit of texture. It's not as much texture as the Scribe or Note Focus tablets, but even when you take out your EMR and kind of like write on it like you're trying to, it
Mhm,
gives you friction. So they've
mhm.
done something. It's not just a slick screen. I don't see a
I
difference
think
though.
some of that I think is intended to be like anti-glare. I don't know how well it works, but yeah.
Yeah, on the iPad, they've got that, Aaron, what you mentioned, it's called nano texture, and it's really
Mhm.
meant for the glare, reduction in glare. And some people, I notice at Costco right now, I don't mean to advertise for Costco. Costco has the older M4 version on sale at a ridiculous price where you can get the nano texture actually $100 or $200 cheaper than the regular glossy screen in like 1 terabyte or something. It's crazy. I think you have to start out at 1 terabyte to get the nano texture. It's not available in the smaller storage sizes, but yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if they're liquidating it or what, but I hear people complain about all the time that you buy the iPad for that bright, shiny OLED, just in your face, beautiful screen, and that the nano texture kind of takes away from that because of the glare reduction. But I don't know. I haven't seen it, Aaron. I don't know if that's your experience or not.
I don't think it does. I don't think it took away from anything. I've heard people say that though, but I didn't see a difference,
Yeah.
honestly. And then using it
What
outside, because I sit outside a lot at the coffee shops and it works great. Well, because I have a paper-like screen protector on my iPad for that reason, and even with that, I don't see a difference in the display, so I think people just complaining.
Yeah. Well, I think some of it has to do, yeah, just to play devil's advocate a little bit because we all agree. But artists, especially, I think may see it more because I've heard Brad Colbo and a lot of people say it who draw a lot and use a lot
Mhm.
of rich colors. So I think that maybe that's where the difference really kind of is. So if you're using all of the colors that you need to see to draw and you're really kind of diving deep into that, that may be where it's at, and maybe it's an age thing too, because, I'm getting older and maybe my eyes just aren't as focused on the details as some of the people who are saying it are.
Yeah.
But that's just one other thought, because if you're dealing with like really trying to get to true color, it's possible that maybe it does reduce that experience
Okay.
somehow.
Yeah. That's a fair assessment. So you watch Brad Colbo too. He's got great videos. I love his animations that he's doing now.
I do too. I've made it halfway through the Learn to Draw in
Those are
60
funny.
Days course, and I've been doing it for a year. So I'm like, I'm a bad student because, I mean, he's a good teacher too. It's not the videos, it's just finding time to sit down and practice.
Yep.
But his videos are very good. They're very to the point. He draws it for you and then lets you, shows you how to draw it and then asks you to practice. Yeah, I think he's great. And I think his animations are spot on and hilarious. And I keep poking him every once in a while and saying he should give Atelier a try because he's
Yeah.
done the books and he's done the Remarkable,
He hasn't done.
but he hasn't done the only one with the dedicated drawing app.
Or for that matter,
Just try it out.
the only one that can function as a drawing tablet for a computer.
Well,
Hey, yeah,
yeah.
true.
And he just recently did. I don't know if you saw that, Jay and David. He just recently did. And Aaron, you had asked, about those Wacom tablets that don't have a display. He
Yeah.
actually just did an updated video on one of the newest versions of those, which is exactly what the Supernote turns into with InkFlow.
Right.
It basically turns it into one of those Wacom tablets without having to go and buy a separate tablet that you can use with Illustrator and PowerPoint or anything you want and just right over your screen. So it's a pretty cool function, especially for teachers. If they're
Yeah, I can see
using it
that.
to like annotate a PowerPoint or annotate a document in real time in class, they use those Wacom just standalone tablets without a display all the time for that kind of stuff.
So you can do screencasting type stuff on Supernote, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
You can do it,
done
yeah.
on
Okay.
Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah. So it's interesting because it's like, I'm trying to think of like what the use case difference would be between, okay, am I, I'm an educator, I'm up, in front of my class, and would I rather screencast what's going on my books or my Supernote or whatever, versus I would rather be able to use the tablet screen as a tablet just for manipulating a computer. Like, I don't know which one of those use cases I would pick in what circumstance.
I would
I
say
would think
both are good. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
See, I was thinking about this the other day. Matter of fact, when I had the Nomad, I tried the Wacom thing, and I was like, this is weird, but I see the use case. But I also thought about when I was younger, we had the overhead projectors that the teacher would come right on. I would think it would be easier to screencast from your tablet because now I have the document or the worksheet or whatever on my tablet. I'm just screencasting with the projector or the TV or the smart board that they have in there, and I'm doing the work there. I would think that would be easier than like a Wacom controller tablet situation. I don't know though.
Yeah, there are two things. So one, if you've got reliable Wi-Fi, then screencasting works fine. And if you can get that document. So if you're using a PowerPoint, you can't really get a PowerPoint on a Supernote. I mean, you can sideload PowerPoint, you could probably pull it up, but your experience, if you're screencasting it, would not be the same as if you're letting the computer do the work with a hardwired connection. So that's kind of where the difference is. You're hardwiring that Wacom controller into your computer. All of the software, all of the things that are running on that computer, which has a higher processor and can handle that. And there's no latency going from the Wi-Fi endpoints. So I think that's why. And now instead, I'm right there with you, Aaron. Overhead projectors, now they're document cameras. I haven't seen an overhead projector in probably 10 years. But and that was somebody just clinging on to it for dear life because it's what they'd always used. But I mean, I think you're right. I think if you have a tablet that runs fast enough and a Wi-Fi connection that's stable enough, screen sharing is probably better. But if you don't, this is a way to kind of offload that processing power. And once you get used to it, you're pretty seamless with it. It's hard to get used to though, because you can't see the screen and you're trying to figure out where your pen is, and it's a little difficult.
Cool.
That's why I didn't judge it. I was like, oh, this looks like it works right, but it's awkward for me. So, like, okay, pretty sure it works right for somebody who knows how to use it.
To watch Brad Colbo draw with it, when he pulled out that old Wacom pad, I was like, this is going to be, even he can't do this real well. And he did. And it was like, because he'd done it so many times, and he knew exactly where to put his pen on that screen. So it was pretty cool.
I wonder if those are like even compatible with like the current generation of Wacom technology, and whether or not they work with like, because I know like the Pro Pen 3 that I got with the Moving Pad 11 only works, at least to my knowledge, only works with the Moving Pad 11 and maybe whatever other things use that particular coding of Wacom technology, because that is 8192 pressure levels as opposed to the 4096 that most of us use with all these devices. But I don't know if those like non-display tablets are even compatible with like the 4096 technology or what. This is always like stuff I'm trying to figure out, like what things match with what are the protocol levels or whatever that match up between pens and tablets and displays and what have you. Because very frequently that kind of info is almost impossible to find in documentation anywhere, assuming it's documented in the first place.
Jay, since you brought it up, I know that you did a video when you first got the Move Ink pad. I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't I just see where Kit did a video and he said it was the best Android tablet, hands down?
Yeah, but I think he was talking about the Moving Pad 14.
Oh, it was the 14? What's the difference between them? I don't even know what it is.
So the 11 is smaller. The 11 also has, and the 11 also has a like a document camera, and is significantly slower. So the 11 has a MediaTek Dimensity 7300. No, it's a Helio G99, and the Moving Pad 14 has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, which is a fairly recent flagship system on chip. So that, I think that's and that actually has 12 gigs of RAM, I think also. That's a really, I mean, the 14 is like $799, and there's a reason it's $799. It's like, it is very nice, like very nice. And the 11's display is very sharp and very, it's very good at showing whatever images are on there, but the backlight is actually not that awesome. It fades out towards the edges of the screen. Like the 11 is definitely the sort of bargain version. And then the 14 is like, okay, you know, clearly not for me because it's for professionals. And so, but like that's the version that they market to artists. So yeah.
Well, that was interesting.
That's why it's for
and I
kids.
appreciate the explanation between those two, because I was just assuming that they were the same, sort of like Samsung Galaxy tabs. They'll do the, you know, you just got different size. Sometimes there's difference in the specs, but I assumed it was the same, but that's good to know. But wow, that was a pretty cool claim. And it got me thinking, I need to check this thing out. It's, I mean, you know, if Kit says it, it must be true. So, you know, the best Android tablet. No, I mean, I respect the guy
follow,
because
honestly.
yeah, I mean, I respect the guy. He's been doing this for a long time, and you know, and he's an artist, and you know, who better to take an opinion from? So
Well, no, I was just gonna say, I don't know if you all saw the one he did recently on like a real budget drawing tablet, and you could just like feel the frustration in his voice.
didn't see
And he
that
did
one.
it side by side with one of the high-end tablets, and he goes, "This is why this costs so much."
Yeah.
And you could just kind of hear it. And he was like, "Yeah, can you get by with this? Yeah, but no." It was hilarious.
Was that like the all do cube or whatever it is that?
Yeah, it was the all do cube, and I
I
was
didn't
like,
watch that
man,
one.
that's
He's kind of softened up on that since, I think, a little bit. Like the first one, he was very like, well, this is why this is not so great. But like after that, he was like, you know, he's like, honestly, this is probably better than average for USI, right? For like the stylus
Right.
technology. And the thing is, it's also way, way, way cheaper. Yeah, I mean, I think it was like 129 or something like that. Like for 129,
Wow.
come on, you know.
yeah, it was cheap. Yeah.
I'm trying out the TCL NXTPAPER 11 Plus,
Ooh,
and I
You got
it. I got it just because it was so cheap before Christmas. It was like $239 or something. Came with a pen, it came with a cover, whole 9 yards, and, you know, I mean, why not check that out, you know? So, I've gotten to the point where I've unboxed it and I've set it up, and I can tell you that the writing feel, this is weird. I always do this, you know, Jay, you talk about, you know, the coding for all the pins and stuff like that. I'm sort of like that when I get a new device, and especially if it has an active stylus. I get all my other active styluses from the Tab XC and the Remarkable Paper Pro and all these other devices, and I have to try them on this one. You know, the InkSense, what is it, InkSense Plus for the Go Color 7. So, spoiler, I guess I'm going to do a video on this one, but the pen that comes with it feels like an iPad. It feels like an Apple Pencil on a glass screen. But when I get out my Remarkable Paper Pro, it may be the best writing feel. The pen for the Remarkable Paper Pro, it may be the best writing feel even of E-Ink devices. I may be exaggerating a little bit, but it's a really good writing feel. Why didn't they make the pen better is my question. I mean, because if you buy this device and it's $239, I think it's $269 right now. It went back up. But if you buy that, you're certainly not going to want to get a Remarkable Paper Pro pen to go with it, because you can't charge it, right? So you're just kind of stuck with it. You have to use the pen that came with, or another USI stylus that you can plug into a USB-C. It's okay with the InkSense Plus, but not as good as the
InkSense Plus is, you know, if you're trying to use a Go 7 or a Go Color 7 II, unfortunately, nothing can rescue either one of those e-readers from its like very terrible pen input problem. You do need the if you try the regular InkSense or the InkSense Plus on either one of those, you're gonna have the same experience. But if you try the regular InkSense on the Palma 2 Pro, you'll get the same performance that you get out of the Go 7 or the Go Color 7 II. But if you try the InkSense Plus on it, the experience is automatically increased. And it's not because the tip is nicer, but it's not because the tip is nicer. It's literally communicating with the device faster than the older one is. They like basically upgraded the, you know, like the protocol that's used, the version of USI that's used between those two pens and between those two devices. So it's sort of like a thing where you start with, you know, it's basically like your output is going to be the combination of whatever you get out of the lowest, you know, version of the protocol between the two devices, right? So like the Go 7 can only do resolution level 2 or whatever it is. And, you know, the Palma 2 Pro can do 4. If you use a pen that can only do 2, you're only going to get 2 output. And if you use, a pen that can do 4, but you're using it on a 2 device, it's going to go down to 2. It's just the way, it's the way it has to negotiate.
Hey, we have our first chat real quick. Says, I like the screen sharing for staying in the drawing brain if I'm showing art-related material. So, Shell, just back to that question we had about, I really do think it depends on what you're trying to show and what you're trying to do as to how you would use those two different things. So, sorry, Dave, didn't mean to cut you off. I was just trying to get that chat message in there.
Like to hear from the chat. That's more important. I was going to say this device, this is a BigMe B7 Pro. I did a walkthrough on this one, but I've been playing with it a little bit. The writing feel on this is really good. It's got that active stylus as well. They've crammed everything that you can imagine into this device. Cellular phone, they've got a camera, document scanning camera on it. It's got a really fast processor in it. And I forget which one it is, Jay. You could probably quote it off the top of your
Dimensity
head.
7300.
Dimensity.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew you could, but yeah, it's a great
Silicon
device.
dork, sorry.
The software, little janky, but the speed on this thing, I'm going to do a video just comparing the speed and the writing field compared to the Go Color 7, just kind of do a comparison on that.
That's not even a contest. This thing's going to blow the Go Color 7 II out of the way, out of the water. No question.
And I wish they sent me something besides the pink case.
Yeah.
Hi.
I'm just glad to see that, judging from what you said so far, it sounds like this is not the same level of jankiness that we're used to out of BigMe's software, that's very heartening, because I would personally love for somebody else to be actually giving Onyx a real run for their money in this kind of device category, right? Like we take E-Ink and bring it to Android, like as an experience and as an application environment, right? That's basically what Onyx is all about. And it's what BigMe is theoretically all about, except their software has historically just been pretty terrible. Now, if like the B7 Pro meaningfully improves on that, and the handwriting quality is at least as good as it is on the Palma 2 Pro, I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, I'm interested. I want to see it.
Yeah, I think, I don't have any point of reference because I have never had I've never held a BigMe product at all prior to this. So the software is not as, we always talk about books is not polished. Books has, menus upon menus upon menus. BigMe, I can tell you in the writing app, at least on this device, so you have a bottom menu and you have a side menu. And they're not completely collapsible. They're collapsible down to a little icon. But then if you add recording to that, now you have a third menu for your recording. So it does have a little bit of, I guess, disjointed, and the interface kind of gets in the way sometimes. And they separate things, like you got the menu with your pen. I keep that on the right-hand side with all your pen choices and a bunch of other tools. But then on the bottom menu, you kind of need to leave it up there because you got your lasso tool there, which would make more sense to put it up with the pens, with all your drawing and you're going to move stuff around. But anyway, I'll probably cover that in a video. So I can't say that I don't know if they're improved or not, Jay, because I don't have a point of reference. So not much help there.
Hey, Aaron, you were about to say something there a minute ago.
Oh, no, I was just saying, I know we got another topic, but we were talking about artists and how they use E-Ink in some of these tablets. There's a young lady I follow named Gopher Cake. If you guys ever have an opportunity to just go to her
She's
page,
great, yeah.
She does she made the Go 7 look like it was a viable tablet. She was like drawing on this thing. So she has, and she might have, at first I thought she only had like Kindles. She has almost, I know she has the books 10.3, the 4C, the 5C, the Palma Pro, the Go 7. She has a couple of scribes. Yeah, she like makes her own coloring books on E-Ink. So check her out if you guys have a chance.
And she's cool. Really cool to listen to.
Cool.
Yeah. I like her channel.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I'm just going to say one quick thing on BigMe. BigMe, to me, always felt kind of like a Books clone that was done really badly. Because whenever I'd watch Jeff Moss or somebody demo it, a lot of the menus are one for one, almost exactly the same. But then they've added things, to your point, David. They've added even more complexity to what was already kind of a And I don't know. I mean, their phones seem to be pretty legit. I mean, they seem to be decent. If you want an E-Ink phone, and I almost pulled the trigger and changed my mind, but if you want that, they seem to be a pretty good experience. But I don't know. I don't know a ton about them other than the InkPad EO that I'm driving around with on Pocketbook is, from what I've heard, a Big Me software clone, and they kind of backed that, and it was a collaboration between the two. And they get credit for some things. I mean, Global Handwriting was not on books before it was on Big Me. And, then all of a sudden you had, and what do they call it? Free write, right? They call it
Yep.
free write. Yeah,
Yep.
free write on books. That was the Global Handwriting on Big Me. So, I mean, they're innovating. They're doing some things that are like really cool, but it sometimes gets lost, I think, in the fact that they have so many devices with such weird naming conventions with all these numbers trailing everything. But they've probably got the most devices, only second to books, and maybe even more than books. I don't know
They
if
may have more. Yeah.
They have a
they're
lot
all
of
over the
retired
place.
stuff from like even 2024 and before that. They have a lot of stuff that they've come out with and promoted for like 6 months or less and then abandoned. It's like, you know, say what you will about Onyx, but like they just finished pushing firmware 4.1.1 to the Note 5 from 2021. Like,
Yeah,
Oh,
that's awesome.
they
that
try.
is.
Big Me is kind of like, stuff is like 2 years old and it goes out the window.
Well, and to me, I think that's where books, Supernote, and Remarkable all kind of set themselves apart in some way, because they're still pushing, I believe, last I heard, all of the software updates from the newest Remarkables to the Remarkable One.
They are.
So if
Wild.
you still have the Remarkable One, which is even more than 5 years old, you're still getting those software updates. And to me, that's the beauty of E-Ink, is that even if you don't have the modularity piece that Supernote has, you still have that support and that update capability from way in the past. So I think that's pretty cool about all of these manufacturers, or at least those three. I don't know about everybody else, but at least those three.
I guess we're going to find out with ViWoods, because ViWoods came out, in like the latter half of 2024, right? I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long they support stuff. Since they have such a fairly limited portfolio, I have to believe that it can't be that tough. Like if they come out with something new this year, it can't be that tough to continue supporting the older stuff, I would hope.
Yeah.
So let's jump. We only got a little bit of time, but let's jump to this other topic that came up, because I'm curious. Because I think most people in this day and age aren't too happy about paying subscriptions. At least I'm not. And it seems like E-Ink is really starting to get into that space. You had Remarkable do it, and I think, quite frankly, when they launched it, it was a train wreck, because it was way too expensive for what they offered, and then they backed that way up on pricing. And now I would argue with their Connect subscription, you get quite a bit. At $3 a month, you get, I think it's $3 a month. I think it's like $2.99 a month. Aaron, you and David may be able to.
$4.99 now.
Oh, is it $4.99 now?
Yeah, I think it's like $4.99. I think.
Yeah, I
But
don't
even
have to
then,
pay it. I was grandfathered in, so I don't have to pay it. So I don't know what the fee is.
I was too. I actually, I wouldn't have to pay for a Remarkable Connect subscription if I went back to Remarkable, which is almost certainly not happening.
Yeah.
yeah. But
we're going to convert you, Jay.
I had to get in there. Let's get that in there, Aaron. Sorry.
But and now you have iFlyTech, which has come out with this new Pro subscription that they're teasing. They haven't actually started charging for it yet. I think, David, you've done the most on this, because they've started betaing it with current users. And I guess my question is, what should be included behind the paywall and what should be on device? And at what point are they just putting things behind the paywall because they can? Versus what things are they putting that may cost them more money and it makes sense because it's a premium service.
Yeah, I think they copied Remarkable on the note sync. They did the 50-day, if you haven't touched a note in 50 days, it's not going to be synced up on the server anymore. It's going to be just on your device, unless you go in and edit it. And they're very specific about what an edit is. You have to make a mark on the note. You can't just do an AI transcription, or you can't rename the note or anything like that. It's got to be some kind of a true edit to the note. So I think they've just copied Remarkable for the most part on the framework around that. One thing that I think that they got backwards is that they are charging you to do offline transcription. To me, you can put a module on your you're probably going to say I'm using the wrong technology or the wrong terminology here, but you can put the software on a device one time to do transcription at whatever cost. It looks like you would charge to do the online version, because that's going to be keep hitting. So why they've got that backwards, I don't understand. And you really don't need the offline transcription anyway, because if you're somewhere and you need to record something, and you don't have the internet to be able to, and you don't have the subscription to be able to do that the transcription, you could do it later. You just wait until you get a connection, and it'll transcribe it later when you can hit the Wi-Fi. So I think they got that backwards. The the other thing that they're offering is they're giving you Gemini as your one of the AI models if you upgrade, and then they're giving you something. The only thing that I can think is that they've taken a page out of Apple's playbook in this the 2-year warranty that they're giving you or whatever, where you can get a one-time device replacement but you have to pay for the yearly version of it. You can't pay the monthly. And I think the yearly version comes out to $4.99 a month. The monthly comes out to $5.99. So I'm not sure that they've got the right mix of stuff in there to be able to, I think they've got it a little messed up.
Aaron, what do you think?
I think it all depends on the user. If you feel like two things. So when you're going to go buy the tablet, if you're buying a tablet and you want to stay away from a subscription model, I'm not going to buy the tablet that's going to require that, or where some of the useful tools that I want to use are going to be behind that paywall. I don't mind paying for an app that has useful tools behind the paywall, but like you guys, I think we all agree, I don't want the handwriting search. Why am I paying for handwriting search on behind the paywall when it can do it on tablet? Unless you're telling me that the handwriting search is more effective when it's bounced from my tablet to your server and back to my tablet that quick. I don't know. It still works offline. So I would only assume it's unlocked on the tablet because I pay for the subscription. So it's things like that I have an issue with. But if I'm getting maybe some advanced AI tools or some extra storage, things like that, I'm okay with that because I know it does cost for them to supply that to the user. So that's kind of where I'm at. If I know I don't want to pay extra subscription fee, I'm probably going to have to buy a tablet that has maybe not as an effective app, but I don't have to pay that fee.
Here's a clarifying question real quick, though. The AI Note 2, it didn't launch with the subscription model. So that's kind of the question is and quite frankly, neither did Remarkable, but they did that over a long period of time. So it wasn't like they immediately launched, people bought the device, and now within a few months, they're adding a subscription. I may feel a little irritated by that if I bought it not specifically wanting a subscription. I agree with you, Aaron, 100%, that if you know what you're getting into, if you know you're buying a Remarkable and that Remarkable has a subscription and you want what's in that subscription, that's perfectly buyer's choice and all of that. But if you buy something and 2 months later they roll out a subscription model that now puts things behind a paywall, that's kind of where my question lays.
Yeah, that's called a bait and switch. So I was going to say, the way that this technology actually breaks down between device and service and whatever is so the way that Remarkable does it, I am 99% sure they use a particular framework that runs in their cloud service, which is the reason why their cloud service got $1 expensive more per month. So you can do handwriting recognition. However, the interaction of handwriting recognition and search is what they have you pay for with Remarkable Connect. Okay, fine. The handwriting recognition will work for other things. Like if you just want to tell it, convert this to text, it'll say, okay, fine. And then as long as it's connected to the internet, it'll send it up and then get it back down. So because the Remarkable, none of the Remarkables have the horsepower to do the handwriting recognition on device, which, okay, fine. The iFly Tech, both of them, and every Books device, every Supernote device, and to my knowledge, every Bigme device, all have enough horsepower to do handwriting recognition on device without needing a cloud service. How they actually execute it is another question. So my understanding is that iFlyTech's handwriting recognition up until this point has been both on device and not very good. And like they may have done an update to it recently, but like still wasn't really regarded as being all that great. So it's definitely plausible to me that they're taking advantage of a cloud service to be able to do basically to displace that need for compute, right? To do the handwriting recognition in like a high quality way, to displace that onto a cloud service. That does actually make sense. It's the same calculation that Remarkable makes. Okay, fine. We are going to keep handwriting recognition but like locally on device behind a paywall for a subscription service is, I will just say, emblematic of what I have heard about the kind of behavior that this company does on a regular basis. Like I've heard of questionable stuff about them interacting with YouTubers and a bunch of other stuff.
One point of clarity, the handwriting recognition, it's not affected by the subscription at all. The thing that's affected is your voice transcription. When you record like meetings or something, it's the voice transcription that's going behind the offline voice transcription is going behind the paywall. As long as you have a connection, it's going to transcribe for you. Or like I said, even if you record it now and you don't have a connection and you don't have the subscription, it'll still transcribe when you do hit, a Wi-Fi connection. So, and the only thing that they're pulling behind a paywall that was on the device when you first bought it was they didn't have the 50-day sync. The offline transcription was something that's been released in the last few weeks, I think, or 3 or 4 weeks. I had it, but on Reddit, I heard some other people, and I think it may have even been in the comments of my own video that they were asking, how do you get that? Because they didn't have offline transcription. So I don't know if it was a part of a beta that I was on or what, but that's the part that I guess would upset me the most, is that they did put the 50-day limit on the note sync.
Yeah, and I would say my biggest problem, and Aaron and I talked about this in the Discord at length about this idea of the way I work, and I take a lot of my stuff to Obsidian, but my Supernote is my carry. So if I can't get to Obsidian or if I can't get somewhere, everything still lives on that device. And if you tell me for a meeting that I may have every quarter or twice a year, that after 50 days, that's gone from the cloud. And I try to access it from my phone, for example, through the partner app, or I try to access it from my computer. If somebody walks in, maybe I forgot my Supernote, I left it sit somewhere else. Well, now if I haven't gone in and made a physical mark in that note, and I've got to remember which notes those are, that's my issue. I think that I have no problem paying for storage. So if they said, hey, you get a terabyte of storage with this, which on an E-Ink device is crazy, you would have to you'd have to make a lot of notes to have that worth money. And it's why I pay for Microsoft, and because you get storage. So you're paying for those things. On this, I wouldn't be able to keep track of which notes that I need to open every 50 days in order to make sure that they sync across all my devices. And I think that's my question, or my issue with that part of the subscription.
And see, I think that's just like a use case thing, because so that's how you would use yours. And I would, in my case, I have an archive folder, and if I haven't touched it in 30 days, that's when I move it off tablet. I move it off tablet to a filing system where I can easily access it on a SSD that I never leave home without. That's what I do. So if I do need to pull something from a meeting from 3 months ago, I'll probably just go throw my SSD in and pull it up. But it sounds like they're adding a paid subscription to something extra. So I don't necessarily need the paid service. I can roll with the, I guess, economy service that they kind of launched with and be fine still.
Now they're talking about, I got I think everybody that's on the beta, you had to sign up by January 20th to get on the beta that includes the complimentary pro plan for a couple weeks or something like that. And now I'm seeing some talk on there that they're going to have the free plan and I think maybe a VIP plan and then the pro plan. So I'm not sure what's going to be in the VIP, but it sounds like they may be doing another tier because I think they got blasted on Reddit for the note sync thing. Gosh, Aaron, you said something and I was going to reply to it and I forgot what it was. Anyway.
Was it about off tablet?
Yes, it was. It was. Yeah, so I use, I did a video a while back keeping 17 E-Ink devices in sync. I use OneNote. I send everything to OneNote. At the end of the day, I literally I send it all to OneNote and it's in there. It's all searchable. I use the same filing system or structure in OneNote that I've got on every single one of my E-Ink devices, so I can find anything really quickly. So for me, I'm not really freaking out about the 50-day thing because if you look at any of my E-Ink devices, I don't keep notes on there, and I swap every day. I'm taking a different device to work every day just to stay on top of stuff. I don't even try to keep the devices up to date anymore.
Yeah, but I think that use case, I think both of those use cases and mine show why you have to be informed. I mean, I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because
it is.
the bigger, like for me on an academic calendar, there are certain people I only meet with or certain groups I only meet with every so often. I don't even know how that would work on Supernote because your cloud and your on device are identical. So the app kind of unifies all of that. So I'm wondering if it goes off, because I think iFlyTech says they remove it. So it's like they move it somewhere else until you reactivate it from the device. And maybe Remarkable does the same thing. I don't know. That would cause me a major problem because I wouldn't be able to see anything on my device. It may be pulled. I don't know. And so that's where I was kind of wondering, how are they controlling this on the back end? And, it seems like a small thing, but when you're going in front of a department of chairs or a college worth of chairs, and you want to quickly pull up what was said at the last meeting, and maybe you forgot to download it to Obsidian yet. And, because I'm behind, I have a backlog. That's my other dirty secret, Aaron. I don't always get it to Obsidian as fast as I'd like to and get it.
I thought that was
built out.
automatic.
No, it's not. That part's a manual process. You have to pull the files over. Once they're there, it automatically converts them and all of that. But it's not an automated save between the two because it goes through that plugin.
See,
So
this is funny because
that's why I think it's important to have these conversations. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just this is what you're describing is exactly what I use Rectangular File for, because everything I've got gets pushed up to that file share where Rectangular File then pulls everything in, does transcription and everything, looks for to-dos, takes the to-dos and puts them into CalDAV, puts them into Nextcloud for me. I am trying to also make that software a lot more accessible in the near-term future. So I just did like a big refactor on it last week, pulling apart some of the pieces so that if you want, you can host it on something fairly minimal. You don't actually even need your own AI backend, and you can use something else. Like if you have a Claude subscription or a ChatGPT subscription or whatever it is, you can actually use that to do the transcription and do the to-dos, etc., and just leverage that thing that you've already got and have exactly the same, functionality. So I kind of use that as like the solid state drive that Aaron was talking about, right? Instead of having it on a solid state drive, it lives on my server, right? But I mean, obviously I've done a bunch of stuff up front to make that happen, right? Like the solid state drive obviously is a much simpler solution. I just, have a congenital defect where I'm unable to leave well enough alone. And so this is my solution for that problem.
Well, I will say one thing about books that I find phenomenal, and I'm working on my kind of overview of having used that for several months now, is the way they handle PDFs to either OneDrive or to Google Drive. So the idea that your PDFs update automatically with new notes it's great. If I use that for my transcription and some other things, it would make a lot of sense for me. That's my problem. I need the note files. My main reason for Supernote is that app is ridiculous in that you can jump to anything just like you would on device. And that is, if you could do that in the books ecosystem, or if those links to other notes or other PDFs or something like that, but I don't know how they would do that. I mean, if you back your Supernote up to OneDrive, you lose that too. So it's not, it's not something that currently exists outside of that ecosystem.
Yeah.
But that's why I love it, because I can do everything on the app that I can do on device except start a new note.
Yeah.
Which Aaron and I have talked about. That's where Remarkable has Supernote beat, is being able to start a
Pinstar
note
too.
off device. And Pinstar does
Pinstar
too.
too. Matter of fact,
Really?
Pinstar is the only platform that I know has a partner app that you can start a note in their partner app and actually handwrite. So
Yeah.
you can
Wow.
start a handwritten note in their partner app with the iPad. So
Yeah,
That's wild.
Graphics Tech
Yeah.
did a video on that. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
So do any of you like
So-
ViWoods e-reader, black and white for the AI, and a second phone text device? The reading experience and physical device look great. I'm a little biased here because I am extremely in love with my Palm 2 Pro. I use it all the time. It's a really fantastic device. However, the Palm 2 Pro is also $170 more expensive than the ViWoods Reader series.
ViWoods.
And there it is.
There it is.
So Dave, I don't have one. I don't have any ViWoods devices yet. I may have a mini soon enough. But the ViWoods readers, I think, for $239, which is I think where they start, really, really nice for what they do. And the fact that they kind of give you, calling on the phone if you use Bluetooth headphones or whatever, to be able to get the voice in and out. For $239 for an E-Ink device, with Carta 1300 on the black and white one, and reasonably good from what it seems like, at least as good as the Kaleido 3 on this for the color one. I think they're great products. I think they're still missing integration with the rest of the ViWoods ecosystem. If ViWoods were to finally fix their multi-device sync, which theoretically now they have stopped saying, oh, our data format is open source and awesome and creates files that are too large and detailed to be synced between devices, which was very silly. I have no idea why they went with that. Now they've started saying like, okay, well, we've heard you and now we're working on multi-device sync. So if they get that working with the reader, especially because Onyx did not do this, especially if you can read your like ViWoods environment mini and AI paper notes on your reader, right?
Yeah,
if you get
me
access
too.
to the Notes app, even if you can't draw on the screen because there's no USI chip, fine, whatever. As long as you can read them, as long as you have access to them, that's a big plus, right? Like that's like, and especially if you're able to sync your like reading progress and stuff like that between the AI paper and a ViWoods reader, that's like all that stuff together. That's when you start to really talk about like, okay, this ecosystem is offering something that maybe not everybody does, and they've got this pocket device that's really convenient to use, has really nice build quality, etc. Then I feel like you're having a real conversation.
So there's another thing. I was going to say this earlier when Ed was talking about note files, like the .note files. ViWoods, I always talk about they don't sync device to device, but they do one thing that I really like, and that's the fact that if you hook up third-party storage, like I use OneDrive, you can have all of your notes backed up to your OneDrive, and they give you two different folders. They give you a note folder, which is a .note file, and then they give you a PDF folder that's the PDF version of that .note.
They do.
So you've got both if you need to. So if you wanted to, and if you've got the OneDrive hooked up to your mini and your 10.65-inch device, you can just go into OneDrive and pick up a .note file from your, like if you're on the large device, you can go pick up a .note file from your mini and have full access to it, editing access and all that stuff. So it's not as
That's nice.
it's not as good as full sync, but you can access all your notes on both devices pretty easily.
That's really nice.
I like the way they do that. I like that redundancy piece of it. I mean, that's the one thing I'm like so of two minds on ViWoods, because I did get that device and had that device and, publicly said I wasn't going to keep it and sent it back to the company. Wasn't because they were in any way shady as a company. I don't think they are. I think they have been above board. The pricing thing, that was a whole nother conversation, but that's just a business decision. I can disagree with that all day long, but I think they interacted well with the community and they've listened and they've made some real strides from what I've seen. To me, though, until they get their organizational house in order, they're not viable for me. And that's their biggest thing. It looks like they're moving in that direction finally to start unifying a little bit and maybe add folders within folders. But until they get that experience to where you can save things across, and really there are only two companies that allow you to do that, and that's Remarkable and Supernote, that fully let you integrate and save absolutely anything in every folder. And until they do that, I think both them and books are at a little bit of a disadvantage with the way that you can structure your organization and being able to create your own file management system. So yeah, I don't know. It's a hard question. I think their devices are beautiful. I think the screen was beautiful. It wrote well. I had no issues with the device from a usability note-taking perspective in that way. It was just I couldn't use it to organize because I needed what meetings did, and then I couldn't organize meetings. And so it's like I was constantly frustrated with not being able to save my stuff where I wanted to save it. But
I know
I think
we
their
gotta
minis
go. Yeah, I know we gotta go. I think you're right. So Remarkable and Supernote are the only ones that allow you to save everything in one place. I think actually the Scribe let you do that now with the new workspace, though.
You're right. Yeah,
So
you're right.
those three allow you to do that. So I think ViWoods, when it comes to the organization, because you do have folder within folder, so you have a folder subfolder filing system. I don't think that the organization in itself, how they have you do it, is the problem. I think the bigger problem is getting past the meetings and paper being separate. It's really no reason why they should be separate. It doesn't bother me that they're separate, but I understand you guys when y'all say there's no reason why they should be separate. Just give me those meeting templates in paper. And before they switched it up, allow me to transcribe the 5 sheets and that I can do in meeting, opposed to how they had to limit it in paper. If they would have fixed that, it's fine. I think books seems better because I have the ability to link. I have the ability to merge. So even though my reading notes are separate from my regular notes, I can still link my reading notes or my text notes together, or even infinite notes. I can link it all together to have one big piece of organization. So that's where I think ViWoods kind of dropped the ball.
Yeah, I think if they just let you say, I mean, I don't mind even the meeting and paper app being separate. I really don't. I see your point on that, Aaron. If I know I'm wanting to do a meeting, but let me save it where I want to save it. That would solve, I think, the issue. If you had one unified file structure that you would be able to save either a meeting note or a paper note, that would, to me, solve a lot of that issue. And I think that even though Supernote allows you to do it, I still do put documents in documents a lot of the times, because otherwise that one file folder gets way cluttered. So, and then that's where the linking comes in, and it makes it really easy to be able to have a folder in your documents with, here are all my PDFs on this topic, and then I can pull from there. It gives you I just like that I have the freedom to do it.
Yeah.
I don't like being told you have to save it here and only here, or this only exists in your library. And that's my biggest complaint. And even with books, that's my biggest complaint, is you have to save it in the library if it's a book.
Yeah, see, what I like about Remarkable, which I don't know if, I'm assuming Remarkable is the only thing that lets me do this, is that if it's a PDF, if it's EPUB, it doesn't matter. I can start reading a book, and if I'm taking, let's say if I actually have a 2-chapter textbook PDF on my tablet, I can go through there and I'm studying for my assignment, and I can literally just insert a handwriting note inside the middle of this PDF or this EPUB, and it acts all the same. Like, the only thing I can't do is merge 2 PDFs together. But outside of that, if I have a PDF that I start, I can throw any kind of note file in that I want. Even if I go on app, go into that note, and then I start a text note, inside that PDF. That's what I like about it. That's why I said Remarkable eliminates the need for linking for me, because the only reason why I link in books is for that purpose. And I don't need that in Remarkable.
Yeah, and I
you're
think they do
right.
handle PDFs better than anybody else. And I think that's just because of the way they treat it as if it's a template file almost by default. That's the way I would explain
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Because you can do that in books and you can do that in Supernote. You can turn it into a template. The problem is then you lose the PDF-ness of it, if that makes any sense.
No, exactly. Yep.
You lose some of the reader capabilities, and that's where it falls apart. Then we can still export it as a PDF. You can maintain all your links and all of that. You can add pages. You can do all of those things, but it keeps you from being able to adjust margins, keeps you from being able to pinch and zoom, keeps you from being able to do a lot of the other things that you would normally do in a PDF. And so, yeah, if Supernote figured out how to do that, I think that Remarkable has the best implementation for that, hands down, at least from my experience.
You don't lose it in books because of how you can pull that PDF into books and into the Notes app now. You don't technically have to pull it in as a custom PDF. I mean, as a custom template. So what I do is when I bring over those PDFs, once I bring them to books and I open them once inside of the Neo Reader, or I just bring it over and open it in the Notes app. It's going to open that PDF in the Notes app. You're going to still keep your links if you have like a PDF with links, but you're also getting the full suite of note-taking tools. That's kind of different from when at first you had to go onto there and you could only add a blank sheet. Now you're opening it in the Notes app. Now I have the full suite of note tools. I can add any template to the page that I want to. The only difference is they save in the same spot, but they're not the same files as a regular note file. So if you're merging these notebooks together, you only can merge those two type of, let's say, notebooks that were created from a PDF opposed to just a regular notebook. I don't know why it's like that.
Yeah, and see, that's where Supernote it functions the exact same way, except it saves it as a note file. The only thing is that friction point. You mentioned books, which I wish Supernote would do, allows you to choose when you open it to open it in Notes or open it in their reader. But if you go in and you select the custom template, then it behaves just like a note with all the hyperlinks that the PDF has. The problem is you have several steps to go through to get it there. But then it saves as a note file, but you would have to manually move all of those pages, select all, and then import them into another note, which I think you said is how they treat the PDFs on books. But
so if you're doing that on books, if I bring in a 5-page PDF and I open it within the Notes app, it's going to create a different type of notebook that I can't merge with a regular notebook. But however, I can copy those pages. So I can go in and copy the 4 pages and then move those to whatever notebook I want to. It's still going to keep that organization of the outline I created. It's still going, and those tags are still going to travel with it. I just can't use the bulk merge feature. So that's the only difference.
And the bulk merge is a huge advantage over Supernote. So it sounds like you're doing it more like Supernote does if you use it that way. And I wish Supernote would do a bulk merge. I've asked for it for 5 years.
There's always been one downside to the books, though, and I don't know if 4.1.1 has fixed this or not. Maybe somebody knows, but I build my own hyperlink PDF files, and when I bring them into the books device, I always bring them in on Notes because I want all the functionality, all the tools that are available in the Notes app. But it's stuck there. When I try to export from books, it doesn't export the hyperlinks, or it didn't used to. I haven't tried it in the latest version. I'll have to do that and maybe put a comment or something on the video. But that's always been my gripe about books and hyperlink PDFs. If you leave it in Neo Reader, that's really the only way to keep those hyperlinks intact.
Yeah.
See, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, I know we got a jet. There's one last comment I'm going to pop up on the screen. It says, has a Manta, RM Pro, and Move, Kindle Scribe Color. Love the partner apps. It's almost a deal breaker to consider anything without that smooth partner app. I would agree. I mean, I think Remarkable and Supernote have the best apps in the business. I don't think there's anybody Brooks's sync is decent once you figure out that you have to tell it every single book to bring over each time, but their notes sync is excellent. And I think some of the things like push to read and some of the other functions within their app is really, really good. But I think if you look at the fact that Remarkable is seamless, the way it syncs across devices, again, as long as you have the Connect subscription, it appears. But Supernote saves everything locally on your devices, and that sync is slower. It's slower than the other partner app, but you get like in your file structure on your local machine all of that information, which is why the partner app lets you navigate just like if you were on device, creates a full copy. But I would agree that those are the two gold standards for partner apps, at least from what I've seen. It sounds like Penstar is pretty close in some ways with being able to start the note straight off device and the handwriting. That's crazy.
I was going to ask, like, have you taken a look at Penstar stuff at all? I don't remember.
No,
Me?
I've not had one. Or did you ask me or did you ask?
Oh, I was asking Ed.
We ask him. Yeah, no, I haven't. I mean, Aaron has done work on that, and it's, I'm not against them. Actually, I think the coolest thing they ever did was to have a pen input only. And I think they kind of, in my opinion, lost their way a little bit by not keeping that uniqueness. I was pretty consistent on that. I mean, it's, again, you either love it or you hate it. I thought it was unique enough that it was an identity piece for them. But that's just me. And we've got one more thing here. Hi, guys. This is the big question for you, Dave. Is it in your top 3 now? How's the AI Note 2, Dave? Is it in your top 3 yet?
So I'm going to tell you that the AI Note, and I'm going to contradict something that I said earlier in the video. I did go, the day that the coworker asked me about the E-Ink device, I did not have my AI Note 2 with me, but it's the only device that I never leave home without now. I probably, I have it number 7 in my top 10, in my last top 10, but I am currently using this device more than any other device with consistency. I love the AI Note 2. It is the AI functionality, the writing feel, the simplicity. Ed, I know that we were talking about or I was saying that this is a notes-focused device. This is your home screen. These are your folders for your notes, and these are your notes. And that you've also got a calendar and you've also got a reading app down here, but this is a notes device, and it's 90% a notes device. Now you do have the Google Store on there, so I can come in and look at all the apps that I want to look at and, install anything that I want on there. But and I'm a note taker. Almost every video I've ever published, I say that my main reason for getting any kind of an E-Ink device is because I like to take notes. And to me, I'm going to struggle not to move this up from number 7 to some higher position. I don't know where it's going to land yet, but it's going to be a higher position than number 7.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by all the reviews I've seen on it, especially on your channel, Dave. I think that my biggest issue with them, and is I think some of their strategy and the way they launched the device has caused them problems that they didn't need. It's kind of like when Supernote delayed the Manta and came out with that carrot Reddit post, and I was critical of them. I defended them too, but I said, I think it was lost in translation. I think they just made a mistake. They were trying to tell us what was going on, but they just didn't do it well. And what I think we got as an end product was better because they delayed. And I stand by that.
No question.
Think Supernote delayed for a reason. Yeah. They just had a horrible communication strategy. I think the AI Note 2 suffers from a horrible communication strategy because when they reached out, they reached out to me 3 different times through 3 different communications third parties. And every time it was sign this contract and say these things, and we will send you a device. That is not the way to get something. And it wasn't, it was a contract. It was, you will say A, B, and C. You will produce this content. That is not something I do.
Yikes.
And I think that hurt them because of that.
Yeah. I think their marketing strategy was not good. Yeah, reaching out to the million subscriber, 500,000 subscriber influencers instead of to Kit Bets Masters or, Voya or you and I or whoever. But they actually reached out to me after I did my review. I did that unscripted or unsponsored review. I bought the device on my own. They reached out to me a couple of weeks later and just said, "Hey, how do we get in contact with you?" And they were really appreciative of the review because it was honest. And they said, "We really want honest feedback." And I gave them that feedback. I said, "Well, you're going about it the wrong way. You need to be reaching out to these folks." Right. So we'll see if that changes, but I think they did make some missteps along the way. But overall, the product is fantastic. I love the device.
Well, and I think that's the difference. You can criticize the company without criticizing the product. You can criticize the strategy without criticizing the product. From everything I've seen, it's a good device. But I think if they're trying to strong arm some of the small, Kit's not a small creator, but if you look at, he's not 500, he's not 1 million subscribers. But if they're coming to smaller people and they're saying, "Oh no, we'll only give it to you if you use our script," that's different than saying, "Hey, would you like to try this out and give us your honest opinion?" And, I'll make my own decision. If I don't think I'm not going to make a hit piece, I'll just tell them I'm not going to review it if I get something and it's really that bad. But I didn't think this device would be bad. I even told them that. I said, "I think it looks really interesting, but I want to have creative control." And they weren't interested.
I went into the smaller Air 2 review, kind of with a negative impression of the company, to be honest with you, because of all these sponsored reviews, I bought the device and I said, "Well, I'm just gonna, if it's horrible, people are gonna hear that it's horrible." But if you go back and watch that review, it's not a horrible device. It's got some shortcomings. It's not as good as the AI Note 2. They've really improved a lot of the stuff from the little device onto this device. A lot of the things that I complained about on the small device is fixed here. So, it wasn't a bad device though. And this one's even better, but it's not going to be for everybody.
So,
Certainly.
they've come out with, in China, there's a video that I found of this. There's a Chinese guy who does reviews, and he's actually now nice enough to translate all of his stuff into English, which is awesome. And he just reviewed iFlyTech is apparently coming out with a 13-inch device. So it looks like it uses exactly the same screen as the Note Max, except, and they go out of their way to call this out, which I think is very interesting, because I can't imagine that was like on script from E-Ink. They go out of their way to call out, "Yeah, we changed the timing controller chip from this old T1000 chip to a new T2000 chip." And basically it's like, this makes ghosting control and sharpness and a bunch of other things way better, because I think they know that screen now has a reputation for having ghosting problems. Basically, like if you're creating an EMR enabled 13-inch screen with, with Carta 1300, there's only one screen that fits that description from E-Ink, right? And so I think now they have changed the controller hardware to fix the problem that they had with the Note Max. It seems to me like they are really good at building great devices and great software. I don't know why they can't let their products speak for themselves instead of doing what they did with you. Also, my understanding is they tried the same thing with Kit, and he also told them to take a flying leap, basically. So, yeah.
All right, guys, we are way over, so I'm probably going to be in trouble. But it's been a great conversation. I really appreciate you guys, kind of prodding and putting this on and, the back and forth. I think it's been a good dialogue. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a bunch because I don't have as many devices as some of you guys do. But I think this is what benefits the E-Ink community, is hearing about how we all have a different way of looking at it. That's what benefited me when I was looking for my first device. And quite frankly, the only device I ever actually purchased, because of the fact that I could only buy one. It was all I had. So I ended up being convinced after watching all kinds of videos. So I think our conversation hopefully has helped somebody make a decision. But down in the description afterwards, everybody, there will be links to all these guys' channels. I'm also going to add them, if they're willing, as what's the new designation in YouTube? Collaborators. So that
Collaborators.
way we can kind of move this out to everybody's channel. But until next time, thank you all for being here. Thanks for the back and forth. And I'll share this with all of you guys so you can repurpose what you'd like. So, all right, everybody, have a good night. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate it.
Take it easy.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you are interested in more content like this, check out past episodes of Change Chat wherever you get your podcast.